It's time for Recipe of the Day. There is nothing quite like a hot bowl of soup on a cold winter's day, and I'll tell you, there's also nothing quite like a hot bowl of soup on a warm winter's day if you're trying to pretend that it is winter and you live in Florida. So I make soup even when it's warm outside to try and feel that wintry spirit. And this one in particular, this is a lentil soup. It is something I love to make at this time of year when I'm trying to eat a little bit healthier in between the parties and holiday festivities. So this one fits in great for like Meatless Monday today. Generally just a delicious, healthy soup, but really packed with protein because those lentils, you know, they're legumes, or well, pulse is the seed from the legume pod. But yeah, they're full of protein, really, really satisfying and very mild in flavor. I think of lentil soup as kind of similar to split pea soup in texture, but with a milder flavor. And so they really take on the flavors of the other ingredients that you use and are just a really nice, comforting backdrop. Now, I am using brown lentils for this soup, which are often the ones that are just labeled lentils at the grocery store. But these ones do not fall apart quite as easily as, say, red lentils. So if you want a soup that's going to be like lentils falling apart into a really, really soft, smooth texture, then you might want to use the red lentils. Having said that, if you have the brown lentils and you want that smooth texture, you can always use an immersion blender and just go in and blend it up really well, or put it into another blender. That works too. Or with this kind of lentil, you can blend it like partly, so you have some that have retained their shape and still have texture and others that don't. I tend to be an either or kind of person on this. I either want to puree it fully and have it nice and smooth, or to leave them with their texture. I don't really like the half and half, but however you want to do it, it's going to be delicious. It's a really good soup. Now, I'm going to say if you are doing this for Meatless Monday or to make it vegetarian or vegan, you're just going to want to make sure to use vegetable stock, not chicken stock. The recipe says chicken stock, but obviously if you're not using meat, you don't use the chicken stock. Okay, you're going to start by measuring a tablespoon of olive oil into a large pot. I use like a heavy bottom pot that's like a Dutch oven sized. You're going to put that over medium heat with the 1 tablespoon of olive oil in there, and once it's warm, you're adding 1 medium onion chopped, 2 large carrots chopped, and 3 ribs of celery chopped. If you wanted to, you could also add in some bell pepper, some mushroom, really any leftover vegetables you got. Anything you have going on can be added at this point. Just stir and cook until they're softened. It's going to be about 3 minutes. Then you add in 1 pound of lentils that you've rinsed off and drained. Some people really like to pick through and make sure there's no little stones or anything in there. I'm kind of lazy and don't bother, but you can. At that same time, you're also adding a 28-ounce can of diced tomatoes, or 2 smaller 14-ounce cans with the juice. You don't drain those first. And you're also adding 8 cups of chicken broth or chicken stock. And like I said, if you want this to be vegetarian, then you would use vegetable broth or vegetable stock. I'm just going to say that this recipe doesn't actually call for salt in the ingredient list. It just says to add salt if needed later on, but I'm telling you that now. And the reason is because different stocks and broths have different amounts of salt. And so if you've gotten an unsalted stock, that's going to have way less sodium, way less salt than a straight up chicken broth. And the range is quite large in between those. And so I find it best to just say to taste and add salt at a certain stage in the recipe, and then it doesn't matter which of those you're using. See what I mean? Okay, along with those ingredients, the lentils, the canned diced tomatoes, and the broth or stock, you're also adding a teaspoon of chili powder, a half teaspoon of garlic powder, a half teaspoon of ground coriander seed, and a half teaspoon of ground cumin. So there's just lots of nice flavors going on in there. I really like the coriander. I think it gives it a little bit of almost like a citrusy kind of note, just as a little backdrop. It's really nice in this soup. Okay, so once you've added everything, you increase the heat to high and bring it up to a boil, then reduce it down to low, cover it and simmer, stirring every now and then until the lentils are tender. It's going to be about 25 to 30 minutes. At that point, give it a good taste. Kind of stir it up and make sure you're tasting a little bit of lentil, a little bit of vegetables, some of the broth, all of that. Give it a taste and see if it needs salt, and add some then if needed. And then you can just serve it as it is. If you've used the brown lentils, they'll still have their shape and texture. If you use red lentils, they'll have fallen apart. So you could just serve it as it is, or if you have the brown lentils and you want them to have that smoother, softer texture, or if you want them to be like half and half, then you would go in with your handheld immersion blender to puree it to the desired texture, or you could scoop some of it into a blender and puree some of it, or do it in batches and do all of it. And that is it. A nice, healthy, vegetarian, possibly lentil soup to keep you warm on a cold day or make you think it's cold outside, depending on where you live. I will put the link to this recipe in the show notes for this podcast episode, or you can head to cookthestory.com/ROTD and get it there, or find it in our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/recipeotd. And hey, just a quick note. I'm on a recording hiatus right now, so for the next little while, I'm replaying episodes from the archives, including this one. If you heard me mention a holiday, a season, or something going on in my life that seemed a bit off, that's why. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you're enjoying these older episodes. I am Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, cookfor2.us, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great day. Let's get cooking.